Hey everyone, welcome back to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by thefeed.com. My name's Travis, and you saw me jamming there because I just found Jan Frodeno's Spotify thanks to Arrow Oates' newsletter. Oh my goodness, does Jan Frodeno have some great music on there. If you need a summer refresh to your music for your training, I highly recommend checking it out. I put it in the description below. And with that out the way, let's dive into the weekend's races that just happened before finally getting to the news headlines throughout the week that we've heard, including the PTO's start lists for the US Open. They're all finally released. So I'm really stoked. Let's get into it. And kicking it off with the short course racing, we had the shortest version of the short course racing taking place, the Super Sprint World Champs in Hamburg, which featured a lot of eliminator rounds prior to the final round of 10 athletes competing for the win. It was Hayden Wilde and Cassandra Beaugrand who ended up the strongest after all those rounds, with Alex Yee picking up his first defeat, finishing in third place. Christian Blumenfeld then finished in fourth. He'll be super stoked with that result. He is slowly moving up the ranks in short course. He's hoping to be number one by the time that Olympics comes back around. He's just missing that little bit of run speed. Gustav Iden, you guys might be interested in as well. He didn't make it to the final, so that's why he's obviously skipping the PTO US races to focus on finding that speed that he needs for short course. Interestingly enough, on the women's side, Katie Zafiris and Gwen Jorgensen were also there competing. Neither of them managed to make it into that final round, however, with Gwen Jorgensen seeming to really struggle in the swims, saying that it was pure chaos out there, and she said she didn't think it was an honest swim, and it was a little unsafe, especially through the tunnels where nobody was watching, and she said people were pulling her under. So it looked pretty rough out there, and that's just the nature of short course racing. From what I've heard, it is not a soft sport, that's for sure. And then Katie, on the other hand, she looked like she might have made it into the final, however, had a bit of a nightmare in transition, falling over her bike. So they'll both be racing in Sunderland coming up for the next WTCS race. Then at the same venue, the mixed relay was won by Germany on home soil, the first country to do that since 2013, when none other than Annie Haug and Jan Frodeno were on that team. Now, that's pretty cool, and it seemed like a great weekend of racing. Let me know what you guys think about the Super Sprint. I think it's super fun, entertaining, just a little hard to keep track of over the few days, who's qualified, who hasn't qualified, but I think that's part of the fun. From there, we also had 70.3 Swansea, which was won by Emma Pallant-Brown, unsurprisingly, with a swift run, as she always does. And then Antonio Lopez, who is a bit out of nowhere. He's another one of those short course athletes who's gone to long course and had a lot of success. He ran a 1:10 half marathon in the wind and the rain there in southern Wales, and I think he might be getting a PTO wildcard coming up probably for the Singapore race. That would be my guess. He is in some serious form. Justice Nieslag was also there. He was the PTO European Open wildcard pick who got injured, but he had one of those nightmare days. I don't know if you guys have ever had them as well, just where everything seems to go wrong. Unfortunately, he had to pull out, but yeah, keep an eye out on Justice Nieslag. When stuff starts to go right for him, I think he is going to be one of the top athletes we'll see a lot more of. We also had Ironman Vitoria, where it was just a women's pro only race in the beautiful Basque country of Spain. This one is on my bucket list to do. And Guru Fredes Lorali took the win there. She's 41 years old. Amazing stuff from her with a 2:53 marathon to break the run course record. The swim course record and bike course record were also broken at that race. So it was a fast day of racing from the women. And Fredes Loralda, I highly recommend keeping an eye out on her for Kona this year. She is flying recently in her older age in the sport, and I think she's one to watch for sure. And then upcoming this weekend, we have Ironman Lake Placid, 70.3 Oregon. At Lake Placid, it's a $100,000 prize purse, a big race, but the big headline there is, can Alistair Brownlee qualify for Nice? And of course, as I'm editing this, Alistair Brownlee's name was not on the Instagram start list for the race. However, his name's still on the official start list, so we'll just have to wait and see. It's weird that we have to hear this from an Instagram post, and the Instagram post doesn't even mention Alistair's name's not on it. It seems like something that everybody wants to know or should be talked about or explained. But well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see whether that's confirmed and whether Alistair Brownlee will not be racing the World Champs. Is there a possibility for them to give him a wild card? Ironman have done that before, but does that ruin the integrity of the race? And is that unfair to other people who had to qualify? So let me know your thoughts down below. I'll be glued to that tracker while I'm actually at 70.3 Oregon in person to spectate and get some footage for some pro athletes. So I'm really looking forward to this race. So let's move on to the news that we've heard, and we've got to start off with those PTO start lists. The women's side is absolutely stacked, but I don't think as stacked as the men's, as Annie Haug, Daniela Reef, Lucy Charles Barkley, and Emma Pallant-Brown are all not on that start list. It's obviously a long way over to the States for those women, especially with a packed August of racing coming up, so they've all chosen not to race. However, Ashley Gentle versus Taylor Knibb, the rematch from last year's US Open, is still pretty amazing to see. I think Taylor is going to be hard to beat, seeing what she did at 70.3 Boulder, how she's biking right now, competing now against the pro cycling women. I think she is just a force to be reckoned with. And then the wild cards were picked for the women, and it was interesting to me. They were quite low down in the PTO rankings. 3 of them were US athletes, so obviously I think the PTO is favoring a little bit the home athletes, which makes total sense. And I'm surprised not to see some more short course women like the men are doing, hopping up to long course to give it a go, since it is a distance that really does seem to favor short course athletes. So interesting to see that, but we've got some good names added to the start list, which is great. And then on the men's side, we've got that Olympic showdown we saw last time with Jan Frodeno, Christian Blumenfeld, and Alistair Brownlee racing. Christian's never won a PTO race, so will he be able to do it finally? Max Newman isn't racing, which is the big headline there. He's got all his eggs in the Nice basket. Then for the wild cards, we saw Mark Dubrick, who I did a podcast episode with, pick up his slot. He'll be featuring at the beginning of the race for sure, and hopefully for longer, as he is a fantastic swimmer, and I'm really excited to see him. We also saw Martin Van Riel. He's a stellar short course athlete and had a phenomenal 70.3 time at 70.3 Dubai. My dark horse for the race, however, is Mathis Margerie, another short course, gone long course athlete who's had a ton of good results lately, so keep an eye out for him. And then I can't not talk about the men's race and not bring up Ben Canoe, who went 7:37 at Challenge Roth, and now he's had the perfect block leading up into his home country race. I know he's patriotic, and I think he's going to be firing on all cylinders for that race. Make sure you check out that most recent interview I did with him. And on that note, you've probably seen me doing a lot more interviews lately with athletes, and that's because I just fell in love with doing it after I started it. I love hearing their stories and sharing it with you guys. And so I decided to put it in a podcast format as well. So now you can see me, The Daily Tri, on all your podcast platforms. And I really hope you check it out, leave me a review, and follow me. You're going to also see on there a weekly triathlon news and preview show coming out on Fridays, so we can talk about all the headlines like we do here, as well as preview the upcoming races. It should be a little more lighthearted, less scripted, and I'll have some guests on there, of course, to help make it a little more fun. Okay, and then moving on to the number 2 headline that I saw this week, and that is Eric and Paula are finally engaged. Eric apparently proposed on a run and completely surprised her on his birthday, actually. So probably one of the most liked triathlon posts I've ever seen. They've built an amazing community, and they're probably some of the most loved triathletes in the whole community. So I'm really happy for them. But they also had some other headlines, including Paula announcing she is racing the UCI Time Trial World Championships in Scotland. So it looks like she might be taking on Taylor Knibb there, which is super interesting. And I think Paula, like Taylor, might be eyeing the Olympics for the time trial in Paris. So I can't wait to follow along that journey, and I'll definitely be tuning into that race. Taylor was 4th at Tennessee for the US National Time Trials, remember, whereas Paula Findlay won the Canadian Time Trials for the 2nd year in a row. And then I might as well throw this in because it is my video of the week, and that is Eric's video he released for Foreign Rider Company. That was a cinematic masterpiece, a voiceover film with a lot of beautiful shots of Eric riding his bike and training and running around this beautiful countryside. It was filmed and directed and edited by him and Nick Goldston. So I just highly recommend checking that one out. And then at number 4 for this week's headlines, I saw on a Super League Triathlon podcast that they shared an interview with Lionel Sanders they did before one of his races, where Lionel was saying that his best is yet to come.
This is a clip from the upcoming interview, which will be released in a week or two.
My peak is still to come, yes, most definitely. I believe that wholeheartedly. I mean, Jan is the best, in my opinion. Jan's the best to do it, the best all around, the most consistent on the day when it was time to do the best.
He was comparing himself to Jan Frodeno, how Jan kept getting better in his old age, and he believes he can clearly do the same. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think Lionel's best years are to come? What will he need to do in order to get to that top level in the sport, the Magnus level that is currently set? And do you think he can get there? And at number 5, we've got Sean Conway. Today will be his 100th day trying to break the record of 102 Ironmans in 102 days. So mind-blowing. I can't believe he's so close to there. My fingers are crossed, my toes are crossed, everything's crossed that he will finish that record, because that would be so brutal if he didn't. He's raising money for charity, which is amazing. I think he's still trying to get to his goal. If you're looking to donate, you've got a lot of options to do so on his website, but one that always catches my eye is that you can get your name tattooed on his butt for quite an expensive amount of money. And then finally, at number 6, I thought this would be interesting for some of you following the Tour de France. Nielsen Paulus, who is having a fantastic Tour de France, who's currently wearing the polka dot jersey. He was actually a triathlete starting out. He won the Xterra national and world title for his age group at just 16 years of age. And yeah, I think he could be one of those guys who switches over maybe back to triathlon at some stage later on in his career. All right, and then we're on to my hot take for the week. And honestly, I've kind of stolen this one from Tim Don, also from that Super League Short Shoot podcast, which I highly recommend checking it out. It's one of my favorites. At the end, they always do a 60-second rant, and Tim Don just went off about penalties in the sport, and I'll let you listen to it. I couldn't agree more.
I'm going to give you 60 seconds, Tim, to do 60 seconds soapbox, but you've got a strict 60 seconds, okay?
Time penalties in triathlon for being late at briefing, washing your goggles in the water on the start line. That should be a money penalty, not a time penalty. Things like spitting in sport, it's an endurance sport, should be a penalty, a money penalty, not a time penalty. You get, these are stupid rules. Penalties for littering, I get that. You throw a piece of litter in long course, you get a penalty. When you're riding along and a water bottle bounces out, people are getting penalties for that. That is absolutely stupid.
I've always thought this, especially after watching the penalty fiascos last year at both the 70.3 and in Kona, with 5 minutes being handed out to too many athletes. That just completely ruins their races. I think there needs to be a lot more judgment that takes place when making those calls. And then, for example, more penalties like Taylor Knibb being late to the athlete briefing. I think, like Tim Don said, they could give her a monetary fine versus making her do a time penalty for the race. That kind of ruins the race. So I think there's lots that could be changed there. And then the one big thing, and then on that note, is that just all the triathlon organizations, please get together and make one set of rules for all the races so it's not so confusing. That would be fantastic. And I don't think it would be that hard to do. Obviously, it's easier to say that than to do it. So that's just me on my soapbox for this week. Let me know what you guys think down below. Okay, that's it for this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And one thing I'd love to do going forward with the weekly news is to have you guys send in your race results and a picture to me so that we can all cheer you guys on as a community every week. So I'd love to hear about it. I love hearing about all of your races when I meet you in person. That's what the sport's all about. Something along those lines. Send in to me your races and maybe we can all congratulate you here in the future. Thank you so much. Don't forget about the podcast. Head over there and check it out. And as always, have a good one. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.